Hello and welcome to the 8th episode of our 2022 Vitality T20 Blast preview shows in association with our friends at the Cricket Draft. My name is Aaron, aka the Cricket Connoisseur, and joining me for tonight's show, as always, are the three musketeers from the Cricket Draft. In the top right, we have, of course, got Dinesh Mahabir, aka Dino. In the bottom left, we've got Chris Dixon, our resident Cricket Draft expert. And in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen is the sceptical cricketer himself, Mr. Rory Law. So, gents, obviously, as always, a pleasure to get you all on for a chat about all things county cricket, in particular the T20 Blast. And game week 7 was quite outstanding, wasn't it? In particular for me, as a Warwickshire fan, 2 massive victories on Sky Sports against Northamptonshire. And of course, our local rivals, Worcestershire, does not get any better than that. And at the end of game week 7, talking of people who are doing absolutely fantastic, I think this is 4 weeks in a row that this guy's been at the top of our table. But at the end of game week 7, at the top of the TCCP Cricket Draft leaderboard, we have got James Swift on 12,478 points. There is quite the gap, although I must say, it is getting quite tight at the top. I think there's around about 1,000 points, if that, between the top 4. So, James, I'll tell you what, it's been a fantastic year for yourself in this year's cricket draft. But yeah, there is a lot of competition, as there is in the tournament itself. And talking of the T20 Blast then, let's head in to our 8th and final week overview for the 2022 Vitality T20 Blast group stages. So, Rory, as always, I'll pass over to you, mate. What are the key trends, the patterns, the piece of data and news that we should be aware of heading into game week 8?
So obviously this is the final round of the group stages. So you will get 6 free transfers after this week, but you want to start getting rid of the players who aren't going to be going through to the next stage. You've got Durham, Worcestershire, Sussex, Middlesex and Kent guaranteed to be gone. Nottinghamshire looking very unlikely, as are Glamorgan. So you want to be getting rid of a few of those assets early on so you can make the transfers you want to make rather than being forced to make certain changes or taking hits in the later stage. I think guaranteed to go through would be Surrey. I think Bears are looking likely, as much as I hate to say it. Lancashire looking good with their players back. Somerset looking strong as well. So you want to be kind of loading up on those assets at the top end of the table, ones that could win quarterfinals and the ones that you think are going to be against finals day.
Absolutely, Rory. And just as a reminder, really, I know you said you didn't like saying it, but who's top of the North group as of this recording?
That would be the Birmingham Bears, mate.
That's right.
You Bears!
Beautiful, Dino. Absolutely fantastic. It's the
like
Bears.
Reflex. It's a reflex. I'm sorry.
Love that from you, Dino. And of course, for anyone out there in the chat, put a you Bears in the chat just for tonight's show. But of course, let's get back on track. Warwickshire bias aside, as we all know, love a chat about the Bears here on the County Cricket Podcast. Let's go into our analyst picks. And as we all know by now, we're 8 shows in. Let's, of course, start with our banker, the marquee name, the person who you should be captaining heading into game week 8. So, Dino, we'll start with you first, mate. Who have you selected as your marquee name heading into this week's round of fixtures?
Yeah, a pleasure to be here again, guys. Last round, marquee name, Liam Livingstone. He's back from England duty. He hasn't really lit up the Blast this season, but I think now in these must-win games, he comes back to this team and he's going to have to play a key role. Look at that price tag, though. He's really expensive to get him into the team. It's kind of risky, but I think at 28% owned, I think that's kind of a safety net for me. I think so many people have him. It's kind of a safe pick. I'm going to captain him as well. That's right now. The flip side is I sold Rashid Khan to get him, another expensive player. But as Rory said at the top of the show, you want to get guys now who are going to go forward in the competition. I think Rashid Khan might be out mathematically right now. We'll look at that. But yeah, Liam is the guy right now for me. Could that change? I've got my boy Critchley on the bench because he's got a knee injury. I'm looking at that. But for me right now, it's got to be Livingstone with a couple all right fixtures that they have to win still, even though they're up there.
Well, I'll tell you what, Dino, I'm a big fan of that choice personally. Hopefully he doesn't pop off too much on Sunday, the 3rd of July at Old Trafford. But Again, it has been a quiet tournament for Liam Livingstone, but again, we always talk about class and quality and caliber. Liam Livingstone possesses all of those traits in absolute abundance. So again, you would not put it past him to have a very, very good end to the T20 Blast in 2022. And talking of players who are having an excellent T20 Blast so far this season, Chris, who have you selected as your captain, your marquee player heading into game week 8?
Well, actually, for the first time, my banker isn't actually my captain this week, and I'll explain why a bit later on. But I've gone for Sunil Ryan as the banker this week. As an overall, I think he's the best player to pick out of the team I've got. He's had an amazing blast so far. His economy rate has been outstanding, has been very aggressive with the bat, batting up the order for Surrey. So that's why I believe he's the banker, but I'll explain why he's not my captain in the next segment.
That's interesting, Chris. That is very interesting. I shall wait for that answer with a lot of interest, actually, and intrigue. How is he not your captain? He's been your captain for the majority of the tournament.
Yeah, exactly. We will see.
Goodness me, I'll tell you what, that is a risk. That really is a risk. But again, we'll have to wait and see. Chris, I await your explanation with a lot of intrigue. That is honestly, that might be the most interesting thing we've had on the show in 8 episodes so far. So yeah, I look forward to the to the explanation for that. But Rory, what about yourself, mate? Who have you selected as your captain, your marquee name, your must-have player heading into this week's round of T20 Blast fixtures?
As much as it goes against my my previous statements, I've gone for a man with nothing to lose, a man who's probably gone, but they seem to be able to turn it on when they're already out of it. Alex Hales. I just think there's potential for him to absolutely go off this week, to be honest. He's got Worcestershire away, what could well be a nothing game, but Worcestershire's power play bowling has been absolutely dreadful. And he's got Durham at home. Obviously, runs have been very easy to come by at Trent Bridge this year. So it's 2 really nice fixtures. Notts need to go big. They need to sort their net run rate out to a degree after some heavy losses. Hales is going to be the man to lead the charge. Just one big innings out of those 2, and that's going to be a really, really big haul. So 2, the ideal, but 1, I think he might have 1 in him.
Interesting pick, Rory. Again, it does go against the previous statement, but nothing to lose, all to gain. Not, of course, that proud streak of 6 consecutive quarter-final appearances on the line. It does look like a massive mountain to climb. At this point, they are going to need other results in order to get them into the knockout rounds, but Alex Hales, you would not put it past him to go big in this week's round of fixtures at all. But aside from marquee names then, and the captains and the big names for this week's round of fixtures, let's head to the ones to watch, the under-25 players who you should be selecting in your cricket draft team for game week 8. So Dino, I'll pass over to you yet again, mate. Who have you selected as your young player to watch out for heading into this week's round of fixtures?
Yep, this time it's a guy who's always been on the radar for me, Naveen Ulhak. He's been doing so well, so consistent this tournament. Having Riyad Ahmed is probably what kind of turned me off from getting him. But I think now, again, must-win games, they are up there. But he's been delivering the goods day in, day out, every single game. He's just 22 years old, so he comes in. And I'm expecting a lot from him. I believe he's got the Pakistan call-up. Could be, I'm not sure about that, but that's what I read somewhere. My memory's bad, I'm sorry. But it's Ulhak for me. I've seen him in game after game, just churning it out, hitting those good areas, doing the business. And it's time. I might have to double on the list on the Foxes. I might have to double with 2 bowlers from the Foxes. Tough fixtures for them, but this guy's been doing it. I back him against good competition and good batsmen, and I'm looking forward to it. Kind of scared, but what are you going to do?
Exactly, Dino. Again, at this stage, you have got to gamble. It is as simple as that. But you just look at his record so far in 2022. He's the leading wicket taker yet again. He was the leading wicket taker in the comp in 2021. He's come back in 2022. The guy just attracts wickets. He's absolutely sensational with those changes of pace, the slur balls, the cutters. Great, great bowler to watch. And again, has a massive ceiling, as you've just highlighted there, Dino. And Chris, moving on to yourself then, mate. This is going to be interesting then, isn't it? Who have you selected as your one to watch / captain for game week 8?
Yes. So my under-25 one to watch is Hayden Kerr of Derbyshire. He's back up the top of the near the top of the order. This time he's been kind of up and down in that lineup so far with the bat. And so the reason I've gone for him as my captain is the 1% ownership. And I'm employing different tactics to what I did in the IPL this time around, because at the IPL I was towards the top, so I couldn't afford to lose that ground. I had to take the safe bets. But now I'm not. I'm a bit lower down, and I'm thinking, right, I need to take risks. I've got nothing to lose. So if I captain a player that's got 1% ownership and it comes off, then I'll make the big gains. I've got nothing to lose. I've got nothing to protect, no lead to protect. So I thought, take these risks, go for it, nothing to lose. 1% ownership, all-rounder, international standard. Let's see what happens.
You know what, Chris? After the explanation, I quite like it. Again, go big or go home. You've got to get those points. You've got to gamble at this stage. Fair enough. That is a really interesting pick, though. 1% ownership. Goodness me. You can tell we take it seriously on this show, can't you, viewers? We're definitely not casual players here at the Counter Cricket Podcast. But talking of players who certainly aren't casual, in fact, players who may or may not be appearing for England sooner rather than later, Mr. Rory Law, who have you selected as your one to watch heading into game week 8?
I'd say England sooner or later would be a lovely sight, but I've gone for Will Jacks of Surrey. I think the prospects of facing that Somerset bowling side at Taunton is something that I couldn't even possibly refuse for a man who's got as much power as Will Jacks has. He is going to smoke it in those first 6 overs, and Kent at home could be a reasonable fixture as well. He does like a left-arm pacer. He likes that angle going across him. I think it could be a big week for Will Jacks. Even if he's not bowling, I'm happy to take the risk on the batting because he's in just such good form. So, yeah, I think this is going to be a really big week for him, even if they potentially don't necessarily, I mean, they're through, so they could potentially make some changes, try some new people. I think Jacks is someone who's going to stay there right the way through and potentially might even try and go a bit harder.
I would agree with that, to be honest, Rory. There might be some tinkering, some experimenting with the balance of the side, obviously, as they have qualified. But yeah, you don't get Will Jacks out of that side right now. He is in such a good purple patch, just dispatching absolutely everything to the boundary at the moment for the Brown Caps. What a player. Again, Will Jacks for England. Let's get that trending on Twitter, folks. But moving on from our ones to watch then, let's go on to our third and final category of the analyst picks. My personal favourite, it's still my favourite all these shows later. It is, of course, the wild card, the budget pick, who is under £100,000 in the game. So, Dino, who have you selected as your budget-friendly option heading into game week 8?
Yeah, under 100K this week, it's going to be Matthew Revis from the Yorkshire Vikings. Now, Revis right now, he isn't in my starting 11. But again, like the cheaper guys, he's an enabler. Having him while I negotiate my transfers, having him in is going to allow me to get expensive guys like Livingstone. So Revis still has been so impressive that he just might make the starting 11. You know, we have a little bit of time to play with the county championship still happening. So, you know, things could change, injuries could happen, guys could step up or out. So Revis is there because he plays. I think he missed only 1 game of the Blast so far. So, yeah, even if he doesn't place at that price, it's the perfect bench guy. Someone like Hogan, you know, who's constantly rising in price. Revis is only 7% owned. So he hasn't risen that much despite being pretty consistent. So I'm going with him as a backup. Possibly could start, but that's why I'm highlighting him today.
Fair enough, Dino. Again, it's the tactics, isn't it? I should know, between you and Chris, so many tactics. I'm beginning to lose count, to be honest. But again, it does make sense. Not as rogue as Fateh Singh last week, who had never made a T20 appearance. But to be fair to Matt Revis, he's impressed me. I must say, I mean, for those who will watch or listen to the podcast after this show goes up, I mentioned him actually in this week's review show. I thought it was absolutely sensational last week. Again, just a very, very good, honest, hard-working bowler for the Yorkshire Vikings. But again, it does make sense then. The enabler, that's what we call it here on the show. But Chris, what about yourself, mate? I think that this is yet another Surrey player, if I'm not mistaken. Who have you selected as your wild card this week?
Yes, of course. So I've gone for Gus Atkinson this week. He had a good round last round, missed the first 2 games purely because of Surrey's strength, but I don't see him missing out now considering how he's done. And also, here's a stat for you. He's got a better bowling average in T20s than Jasprit Bumrah. So I believe Gus Atkins is extremely underrated. Obviously, different tournaments. He's playing in the Blast compared to the IPL. It's slightly smaller sample size, but he's played over 20 games. He's averaging about 17 with the ball, 2% ownership. Another, I've got to go for these out there picks. Could have gone for Rehan Ahmed, who's also in my team this week, but he's got about 26% ownership. So I thought, Gus Atkinson, 2% ownership, very underrated bowler. Not many people have him, so that's why I've gone for him this week.
Fair enough, Chris. I'm not sure that stat is going to slide, to be honest, in our comments section. Gus Atkinson having a better bowling average than the great Jasprit Bumrah, but again, a stat is a stat. Doesn't matter the sample size. I suppose every single stat matters, doesn't it? And Rory, moving on to yourself then, last but by no means least, who have you selected as your wildcard? Someone a little bit older, it has to be said, but still beloved in the wider county circuit.
Yeah, absolutely. I've gone for a man that if you told me I'd do this at the start of the season, I would have been shocked. But I've gone for Michael Hogan of not Gloucestershire, Glamorgan. That's really bad. Yeah, he just sticks it on the spot. And as much as his form's slightly tailed off, he's very cheap for what he gives you. He's playing against two teams that have slightly struggled to score quickly in the power play, in Essex and Kent, and that two fairly favourable bowling venues as well. So I think as just an enabler for two games, appreciate Glamorgan probably won't go through, but he should be a fairly reliable asset, not to go for too many runs and to give yourself a bit of budget to get some strong all-rounders in, which is exactly what I've done this week.
Fair enough, Rory. I like that pick. Obviously, I love Michael Hogan. I love him. He's absolutely fantastic. Gutted he's retiring, but 69k in the game is absolutely ludicrous. It really is. That is such a fantastic, effective, cost-friendly option. It really is. To be honest, I'm tempted to put him in there. I really am. I just cannot get over that. 19 wickets in 10 matches as well. Absolutely fantastic. Timeless is the great man. So obviously, Rory, a massive, massive fan of that particular pick. But moving on from the analyst picks then, let's get into the analyst 11s. And Dino, as is tradition on these shows, we shall start with you first, mate. Who have you selected in your 11 for game week 8?
All right, I know I'm known for making all these changes, but not so much this week. All right, I've just made 3 changes this week, so I've taken a minus 50 because I just got to buy expensive guys. But top 3 come in with Smeed, Hales, and Michael Pepper, as we see there. Not much changes, and the all-rounders. Well, David comes in as a batsman as well. Livingstone comes in. Jackson and Ryan have been there a while. I've had Duckett since last week. It's been really good. So he's staying in. Ulhak and Ahmed and Peter Siddle rounding that off. I just want to mention my bench. Like I said, I've got Critchley on the bench. He's got a knee injury. I'm waiting that out to see what happens. So things could change because we do have some time. I've got Revis on the bench as well. So, 2 guys, an all-rounder and a bowler that could possibly come in. The other guys are Heldrich and Fateh Singh, who they're just enablers. Heldrich just does the 1 game week this week, so he's not playing for sure. But that's what I'm going with. Will my captain change? Maybe, but I'm locked on Livingstone. I don't think he comes out. But what I might change out of this, like I said, the combinations on the bench, but those 3 guys up front do not fill me with that much confidence. I gotta say, they are a possibility. I just might use my next 2 transfers. So I'm gonna wait and see. We got some time. I would like, the viewers, you share your 11. Who are you looking at? Like a guy like Lynn plays 1 game this week, so he's got to be, off. I hope he doesn't make 100, but I just gotta say it. But yeah, that's it for me and my 11. I've got double Outlaws, double Lightning, double Surrey, double Foxes, and that's a bit concerning as well, right? But I will say, looking at both groups, it looks like the top 5 are the ones in contention. The one below, there are 8 teams. That means the other 8 teams out of the 18, they have to hope for some good results to get through, basically. Their destiny is not in their hands. So I'm trying to lean towards the team that do have their destiny in their hands. They have to win still. And even though Surrey are top of the table, they still have to win because there's some tough competition there. It depends on who you play and that sort of thing. All of these things come into consideration. So I'm going with the top 5 on each group. A bit risky with the doubles, but looking forward, I want to make less changes as I go forward. And I will say this, going forward from the knockout, from the group stage, you will find that a lot of teams, when they become less players in the pool, you'll find that a lot of teams start to become similar. And that's where differentials like Chris's will come in even more. So I've got one eye on that looking forward. So that's it. Nothing too spectacular, but I'll still say I got some time to tinker with it.
Well, you have indeed, Dino, but again, lots of power, lots of star quality. That is some starting 11, to say the very least. And obviously, we have to mention the Harlow Habanero, Mr. Michael Pepper. Been absolutely fantastic in 2022. So obviously, a massive fan of that pick. But you mentioned differentials, and that brings us beautifully onto Mr. Chris Dixon's 11 for game week 8. Chris, who have you selected in your starting 11 for this week?
So as my batters, I have gone with Alex Hales, Joe Clark and Will Smead. Didn't have quite the flexibility to do as many road picks this week because we just have the 2 franchise. So, I've got to stick pretty standard with that. For my all-rounders, I've got Sunil, Nisham, Sams and Kerr. Kerr obviously is my captain as that kind of road pick to try and take that risk. And Sams is my vice-captain because he's only got 2% ownership. So he's an international all-rounder with just 2% ownership. So if for some reason Kerr doesn't play, Sams will come in. Finn Allen as my keeper, capable of being very destructive on his day with a bat at the top of the order for Yorkshire, playing on some good wickets when he's at home. And then my 3 bowlers are Rehan Ahmed, Richard Gleeson, who's been a great T20 bowler in recent times, for now playing for Lancashire, and Gus Atkinson, another very low-owned player who hopefully can come in and do it for me.
Absolutely, Chris. It's such an interesting team. It really is. I don't think we'll see many starting 11s quite like that in game week 8, but you mentioned the differentials. It is that possibility, isn't it, to get massive points. It's a big gamble. It is go big or go home, but honestly, mate, I quite like some of those selections. In particular, Dan Sams, I think he's been fantastic. Hayden Kerr's an interesting one. If that pays off, I'll take my hat off to you, mate. I really do. And then, of course, Rehan Ahmed, an absolutely sensational young talent, to say the very least. Moving on from your 11 then, Chris, let's go on to our third and final 11 of the week, which does, of course, belong to the sceptical cricketer, Mr. Rory Law. Rory, who have you selected in your starting 11 heading into game week 8?
So my big focus has been this week, as much as I can, on people who bat and bowl. So my batters are Glenn Phillips. I've gone for Alex Hales as my captain, and Will Smead. All people with massive amounts of power on their day, reasonable fixtures. I've gone for 4 rounders: Brett D'Oliveira, Will Jacks, David Williams, Sunil Narine. All massive contributors. I think there's a lot of potential in all of them. Really big fan of David Willey as a pick. Nearly had him as my banker. So someone I would recommend having on a watch list. Tom Banton is my wicket keeper after, that shot. You know the shot I mean. I don't need to tell you which shot, but that shot. Unbelievable. And my 3 bowlers, Michael Hogan, Rehan Ahmed, and Simon Harmer has entered the team this week. Favourable fixtures, 2 really good oppositions, and very likely to go through to the next stage. And offers a bit with the bat, potentially could bat 7. So that's the 11. Really looking forward to the game week. Think it could be strong, but really relying on some of these players to get themselves into some good form.
Well, fair enough, Rory. And whenever you mention Simon Harmer with the bat in hand, I just think back to 2019, the winning shots for the Essex Eagles on finals day. He's a very, very handy batter. It does have to be said. So Simon Harmer, what a pick. Rehan Ahmed, again, fantastic. I think every single one of you has gone with Rehan this week. And then that final one, Michael Hogan. What a boy. What a fantastic player, to say the very least. But, gents, that is almost it for today's show. But, of course, before we do wrap up and say our goodbyes for the final time in the 2022 Vitality T20 Blast group stages, we do, of course, have our prediction from the resident oracle, Mr. Chris Dixon, between Rory and Dino. Now, at the moment, Dino is well on top. In fact, it's incredibly tight between my team and Dino's team. We're 15th and 16th, respectively. But in terms of game week points, Chris, who do you think will finish with more? Looking at those 11s, will it be Rory or Dino?
Tough one for me this week. I really had to look at it, but if I have to go, I'll probably just go with Dino this week. Just looked a slightly bit stronger on paper, but it was a tough one. I have absolutely no idea. It's anyone's game this week.
Can I just say, I am genuinely scared of Rory's team this week. It's incredible, but thank you for your blessing, Chris. I hope it works out.
Well, we'll have to wait and see, won't we? They are two very, very interesting 11s. Dino's is full of absolute star quality. But then, Rory, you've got a lot of power in there as well, with the likes of Jax, Willie, Ryan, Banton, Smeed. Goodness me, that is going to be a fantastic clash of the Titans to wrap up this year's T20 Blast group stages. And again, viewers, let us know in the comments below, who do you think will emerge victorious at the end of this game week? Will it be Rory? Will it be Dino? Please feel free to let us know either in the comments or indeed on our Twitter. But that is it from us four here at the Counter Cricket Podcast for tonight's show. So each and every single one of you wonderful viewers, thank you very much for tuning in. And as always, guys, we'll see you on the next one.